November, go.
Okay, good morning. And from my side, I'd also like to thank you for the invitation to be here and to give a short compliment to my colleagues from the partner DGs in the Smart Cities Initiative. I want to give you a brief flavour of the urban mobility aspects of this process. So, the European Union is already involved in urban mobility, not so much because we have legislation for cities and mobility. This is largely a question for the national or local level, but we provide funding for mobility action. And so over the last 10 years, for example, we've funded through the Civitas program over 58 cities to implement innovative packages of mobility measures. So this is not just a transport technology project or testing a new vehicle. These are cities that give a political commitment to introduce innovative packages of mobility measures. So if you're interested in finding about like what's happening on mobility, which cities are innovative, who are the actors working in this area, I really encourage you to have a look at the Civitas website. So as well as supporting these projects, we pay for the horizontal evaluation of these measures on all of the lessons, the outcomes, what they learn, what works, what doesn't, is all written up on the Civitas Initiative website. So that's a free resource for you where you can easily identify actors, projects, and cities that are innovative in this area. Over 10 years, we've spent almost 200 million euros supporting 650 different innovative mobility measures, all written up and evaluated, available for you for free. Now, of course, the European Union spending is in support of European Union policies. We have a 10-year transport policy. The last version came out last year in 2011, and it's focusing on a couple of key things. First of all, this is the continued dependency of the transport sector on imported oil. So transport is 98% dependent on oil. So it's the reducing our dependency on imported oil, which is subject to political and price variations quite dramatically. And linked to that is this, the contribution of transport to decarbonisation of the EU economy. You saw in an earlier slide that some sectors like energy and like residential and housing will almost completely decarbonise by 2050. But other sectors, like transport, won't make such a deep contribution. So while the overall economy is looking for an 85% reduction by 2050, in transport we're only looking for a 60% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions compared to 1990. Now this is because the overall lowest cost pathway for the EU economy is not that every single sector makes the same contribution. It's economically more sensible for some sectors to make a bigger contribution than others, and that's how we've come up with these different figures. The third element of the transport policy is tackling congestion. I'll come back to that in a minute, very relevant in cities. And of course, the whole of the EU transport policy, like all of EU policy these days, has as the background this question of the crisis and new forms of economic growth and green growth. That's like a theme running through the whole thing. Now, the white paper on transport sets out 10 goals for the next years, but I want to just highlight for you the two of them we've set for urban transport. We're looking at halving the use of conventionally fueled cars in cities by 2030 and the phasing out completely of conventionally fueled cars by 2050. We're also looking to a transition to essentially CO2-free city logistics in major urban centres by 2030. Now, in concrete terms, we'll be taking that forward next year with a legislative proposal next summer, which will focus on the area of sustainable urban mobility planning, city logistics and access restrictions, including road user charging. If those three topics, which we are thinking about now, we're preparing legislation on, are interesting for you or relevant for you, we encourage you to take part in the public online consultation, which is open at the moment. This is a standard part now of us preparing policies, is that we give a chance for public sectors, public in general, companies, individuals, organisations to contribute. That's available online for you until the 17th of December. So if that's relevant for you, please contribute. Now, you saw this slide earlier in Norella's presentation. So this is the smart cities focusing on this overlap between the energy, ICT and the transport sectors. And I want to give you a little flavour of the kind of things that might be relevant in transport. So you remember the philosophy of smart cities. So we're working on common challenges. So in cities, there's many common challenges. Air quality is a big driver for local action on transport throughout the world, but also in Europe. Many European cities are not able to comply with European air quality standards because of problems with traffic. And as we make tremendous progress in other areas, the traffic problem becomes increasingly obvious, and they have to take more action. I mentioned congestion before. This question of cities as places of meeting and exchange being very important for the economic recovery. So cities are really keen to maximize their accessibility. How do you get the most number of useful trips completed in your city before you get some limit, air quality limit or congestion limit? So how can we improve that? There's another aspect of accessibility which is important to mention, is that some parts of the society, maybe older people, maybe people with disabilities, young people, maybe sometimes their ability to have access to the goods and services they need is limited. So cities are also increasing access for all sectors of the population. Now, efficiency is crucial. We've already heard about energy, and infrastructure. How can we make better use of the transport infrastructure? We do not have the money to build the transport infrastructure that we thought we needed. So we have a certain infrastructure now. How can we use that better, more intelligently, more effectively? How can we improve the carbon efficiency of the system? How do we improve the safety? We've reduced about 50% of the road deaths in Europe, but that's still 25,000 people a year, millions of people seriously injured. How can we improve the safety efficiency? Space is a very valuable commodity in cities. How can we make better use of space, maybe switching use of space at different times of the day? Smarter. And in transport, an important thing is the overall networking efficiency. How can you improve the nodes and the interconnection between different types of journeys? So all these are common challenges. I think information is particularly important in transport, knowing where you are, knowing what the options are, when it's coming, how long it's going to take, is there a space, etc., etc. And I really feel that we're on a cusp of some kind of information revolution in transport, particularly in local transport and city transport. There's a tremendous thing there. So how can we take advantage of this new, accurate, personalised, time, location-dependent information to improve things? Lots of potential there. And again, optimizing these network benefits. So I wanted to give you just some illustrative examples, and I'll highlight that. We're setting up these stakeholder platforms and this high-level panel to define the challenges and establish a work program for smart cities until 2020. So it's not for me to tell you what your project should be. It's not for me to determine, but to give you, for those of you not working in transport, to give you some examples. We've seen a lot of work in electric vehicles, so on batteries, on vehicles, on charging, on inductive charging. We see some cities demonstrating how this can work with city logistics or for cars. So maybe what we could do, you could imagine a smart city lighthouse project on electromobility. So the city providing sort of prioritization for the parking, for the vehicles, for access, committing its own fleets that are used in waste collection or its own staff to take part, and providing a guarantee into the future of the privileged access for electric vehicles. You can imagine the ICT providers providing the reservation information systems, the access to payments, and the accounting systems that will be needed, the interfaces. And you can imagine the energy suppliers providing the infrastructure that's needed given the energy that's needed at different plants. So you can imagine this think back again to the philosophy of smart cities that were presented by Norella. So we're talking about innovation, replication, creating a situation where the banks and the businesses engage so that you can create large-scale markets, demonstrating these kind of things in multiple cities simultaneously to scale up the deployment of these kind of technologies. So you can imagine that kind of lighthouse project. Another example I will give you is this personalized multimodal transport solutions. I mean, the city authorities have a strong interest, as I said, to improve mobility in their cities. They can provide the data and the infrastructure, the benefits for people that may be switching mode, and again the security over time to give business the incentive to invest. You can imagine the energy providers doing the accounting and seeing the benefits of different types of mobility, and the ICT parts providing user interfaces to make it all work and to be able to importantly measure the benefits. I see many cases where I'm charged for different transport services that I use, but I never seem to get any benefit back. So if I decide not to take my polluting vehicle into a congested traffic at a peak time, this is saving a lot of external costs. Why shouldn't I get a payback for not making that choice? So lots of potential. Those are just two illustrative examples. A lot of this information and a lot more, if you're interested in sustainable mobility, is available online. I'm also making a presentation tomorrow in more detail on our urban mobility policy at 12:30, so if you're interested, please come to that. I hope this was a useful complement to the presentations of my two colleagues, and we're looking forward to your questions and a discussion on this Smart Cities initiative. Thank you.